Welcome back to the BJJ101 Storeroom podcast. This is going to be episode 13. We have an awesome guest of Brendan James. Is it Barquet?
Barquet, yeah.
Brendan James.
So I got that one right. Brendan James, yeah. Or Brendan James. So we'll just introduce everybody else again. Again, we're back with Eduardo Diaz. He's a 4th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and Brendan also is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, all at Gaha HQ in Brisbane. We always generally start with like a real basic question of just like start to introduce yourself a little bit, and particularly when you kind of like got introduced to, but do like the early years of your life or whatever, and like where you come from and the background about yourself, and then also where you kind of got like introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. I was born in Western Australia, and like most of my life, like I'm a small guy, as you can see. Like I was sort of pushed into a lot of martial arts from my parents, and so like when I was young, I did taekwondo and karate, but I never really liked them. Though a lot of it is just like this really traditional stuff, and like I never saw a lot of point in it. But I did enjoy. I remember when I was probably maybe 6 or 7, I saw my first ninja movie. It was the American Ninja, and like this guy who was basically beating up like 10 guys and stuff. And like this is kind of where I kind of thought about this idea of martial arts. And like I said, like I did karate and all of these type of things, but I never really enjoyed them. And I then moved on to like Kung Fu because I became a big Bruce Lee fan from the whole ninja thing, then into Bruce Lee. And I did Kung Fu for years, and I met a person there, and he's a professional fighter, and he had his first professional fight, and for me, he was like the greatest fighter I've ever known type of thing. And he basically got taken down and submitted with an arm triangle. At the time, I didn't know what was happening. Like I'm looking at this going, what's going on? Like he's on the ground and he taps, and the whole fight's over. He barely threw a punch. This guy just grabbed him, dragged him to the ground, and it was over. And I was kind of dumbfounded. But seeing that against this person who I considered to be an amazing fighter, made me go, what is this? And it wasn't, this was all happening at that very start of like UFC. So you'd get tapes, like actual cassette video tapes handed around to friends.
VHS.
That's it, VHS. And so like you would be like at a like tape in the library, and someone would have a tape, and you're all huddled around like looking at like these people like beat on each other. And this is where saw Hoist Gracie as well. I didn't act on any of that for like quite a number of years. I kept doing Kung Fu, ended up getting injured, and then just left sort of martial arts for a while. And then I think it was maybe a couple of years, and then I decided I wanted to come back, and I went to, at this time, mixed martial arts had become quite popular. Still early days, like sort of Matt Hughes, kind of that, where it's still rough and tumble. And I thought I'll go to an MMA gym. So I went to an MMA gym, but I was only doing stand-up classes. And like, so, which was great. And then like I got convinced to do a jiu-jitsu class. And I'll remember it was like no gi, and I just got schmozzled. Like every which way I went, like was wrong. So like I'd go left, and I'd get caught into something. At this stage, I didn't know what it was, but I'd be caught into something. I go, oh, okay, well, the natural order of the world, if I go left and it's wrong, if I go right, it'll work out. But it didn't. Like I'd go left, and then something else would happen. And I remember I was getting an arm triangle a lot because I'd try and pull one arm out, and bang, I'd just get in triangle. And I just went, I don't know what's happening here. And that was kind of my first introduction to jiu-jitsu. And I just wanted to understand what was happening. And the MMA gym I was at, I didn't find it was a very good environment. And I wanted to keep doing this. So I went onto websites and started looking it up. And I found the Gaha Jiu-Jitsu page. With Eduardo, and I read it all, and I had read a bunch of it, and I was going to go and check out different gyms, but Eduardo at that time, and it's still on the website in a different form, he had like a code of conduct in there, and it was written in a what I could say like was kind of like a broken Brazilian English, but the intent of it was really sweet, which made me think like this person, like, you know, is a martial artist, is a black belt, but he sounds like a really kind, genuine guy. Yeah. And I went, if half of that, what I'm reading in this is what he's like, this will be a good school. Because this MMA gym that I went to was rough and tumble. They like, I was not going to be a prize fighter, so they did not care about you. You were just there to pay them money, and so their fighters could fight and earn money. So their tutorials were like 1, 2, 3, like simply like you could get it out of a magazine. I'm not saying that they're bad at what they do. It just wasn't at that time. It wasn't catering for your you know, general martial artist who just wants to learn you know, techniques and things like that. Anyway, I came to a class and it used to be over here. In another gym, and I just got like beaten up there. Like, you know, I tapped my first body triangle, known as a soft tap, which I always thought was a funny term. But just kept going, and like Eduardo was exactly how I anticipated him to be from that reading that code of conduct. And then I signed up. Like immediately, like I went to one class. I had this like crappy old style judo gi, and it
was white, wasn't it?
Yeah, white.
Long, like on a
and it was too long.
Where did you get that from?
I got it from the
size
MMA gym.
8'4",
It didn't look good and it didn't fit well. And then eventually, like that gym, the gym moved out of that it was a Tokon thing, and moved to Eduardo's first like solo location, which was just down the road from where we are now. And there was a big sort of you know, hoo-ha with getting out of that gym, because like a lot of the students actually were locked into contracts with the gym, not specifically with Eduardo. Yeah. And I ended up having to kind of pay them out, and you know, there was whatever.
That was tough time. Time.
I think it was pretty rough. But like, and Eduardo actually offered to pay for the thing. He goes, "Oh, look, I'll pay for it." But I didn't. I said no. And then he just came to me one day and gave me my first gi, first, because I had this shit white gi, and he gave me this. There's a Pride gi blue. A2. I still have the gi at home. Like I don't wear it anymore.
Thanks
but
God for that.
Yeah, I would never get rid of it. So it's sitting in the garage, and like it's a gi that I'll keep forever. Like maybe one day I'd like to put it in a frame.
Sentimental kind.
But like that was pretty much like my introduction is like, you know, from, you know, getting like seeing what happened, getting like my friend getting smashed by someone like through, it wasn't punched, it was just submitted. Then seeing UFC, going to an MMA gym, and then basically eventually with Eduardo. And interestingly, today, the 14th of August, is my 12-year anniversary from that day that I went to Eduardo's. So I've been training for 12 years, and today is the exact day that I walked in. Like,
special occasion. Then.
So which is we didn't plan that, but like I woke up this morning and it's the 14th of August, 12 years today that I've been training.
That's crazy, man.
That gym actually was very, very remarkable, because it was the beginning of something that I always believed there was. Make a jiu-jitsu only gym with the jiu-jitsu culture. Before that, jiu-jitsu wasn't so famous here in Australia, so you had to literally rent a space or have some sort of partnership in like in a Muay Thai boxing gym, or in a Taekwondo gym, or in a karate, or PCYs or something like that. And I always dream of like having a jiu-jitsu place with the jiu-jitsu culture only, with jiu-jitsu people, which is a very different kind of people than does other martial arts. You know, each person has a different style, you know what I mean, that does certain martial arts. So, and vibe, etc. So that was really good, because it was the beginning of something that we start to build, like with a solo jiu-jitsu culture mentality. That was excellent.
Yeah, I agree. And like we've dabbled over the years in having like some striking classes, all that. And it's never really panned out, because I think like jiu-jitsu people are jiu-jitsu people. Like if you're in it, you're in it. And like doing this other stuff, like just doesn't seem that interesting. Like if you want to train stand-up, go to another gym and do it. Like, and there is 100% for me a different vibe in training in a solely dedicated jiu-jitsu school than a mixed martial arts, or even one that is not maybe mixed martial arts but have stand-up classes and things like that. I think it's a way tighter community, like where it's competitive but supportive. Whereas I find once you start trying to get in, like especially prize fighters and things like that, there's a lot more competition and ego in there.
Yeah.
No one wants to let anyone get away with anything. And I think it actually dilutes jiu-jitsu.
100%. I agree.
I think we've talked about, like, I think there's kind of two main points. I think, like, the professional fighters thing, that's, like, a completely different, like,
For sure.
situation. But, like, we've talked about this before with people just, like, sparring or being involved in boxing versus grappling martial arts. Like, I think one of the main reasons, we talked about this before, is there's no such thing as, like, a light roll. You know what I mean? And that, I think that actually leads to a lot of the time why it is so... It's more neutral compared to a lot of the other martial arts in terms of how people behave and their ego. Yeah. There's always going to be people with weird personalities and people that, you know, don't know how to kind of behave socially in certain settings. But just the fact that you can actually spar 100%, you're not going to get knocked unconscious, you're not going to have these catastrophic things happening, and you're training at a high intensity, but still in a way that's safe enough for you to do every day, that it equalizes that egotistical, like, addition of people's personality in training.
Yeah, and I think...
And you can't really do that, I don't think, like in, you know, a lot of stand-up striking martial arts.
No, I've been punched in the head a lot. And, like, one of the last times I got punched in the head, like, I got concussed.
Yeah.
And, like, we're talking 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
And, like, I had a massive, like, headache and migraine for, like, a week. And then I kind of just went, I'm done. Like, that's not what I want to do. But outside of that, one of the things I always found, especially with the traditional martial arts, is that you will never test it. You would do techniques over and over again to repetition and to nauseum. But did it work? And you don't know. Like, and I like in that whole time, I never really got into fights. Like, I'm not like an individual that, like, you know, seeks out or even puts myself into positions to have to fight. But like I have no idea to this day. Like, you know, like...
Yeah, that's kind of my point, you know what I mean? Like, with jiu-jitsu, you're literally testing the skills and the techniques every session.
People test every session.
Every session.
And you might train in boxing for 3 years and never be knocked out. So you're going to leave whatever you believe that you're good enough or not good, but who knows?
And this is what I love about jiu-jitsu.
You're not thrown into reality the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, every day, and it's staged. Like, when you first walk on the mat, you're just like a rag doll for someone who knows what they're doing. But that's part of the baptism of fire. And, like, I think this is, like, where it differentiates people who keep in jiu-jitsu and people who don't. You need to take kind of that part of it and put your ego aside and just realize that you don't know anything and that you have to go through that to a point where you start to learn things. And in my experience, it's like, minimum 6 months, you're not going to have any idea what you're doing, and at the 6 months you'll start to, you know, really understand and start to be able to put something back and not get submitted as easy. And then someone who walks on the street, you'll be able to handle yourself against them reasonably well.
And to help out when you're starting, don't think about what other people think about you, because everyone started that way, the same way, and they kept going.
Exactly.
So they
Everyone's the
understand.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, we always talk about this type of stuff. It's like trying to differentiate, like, the physical aspect of jiu-jitsu and then, like, your own mental component that you bring with you, like all the fear of losing in front of other people or failing at this thing and blah blah, and you have to navigate that also while learning a certain number of skills and movements and postures and blah blah. And it's complex, it's unusual, it's
you have to fall in love with the failure of jiu-jitsu, in the sense of that, like, you're going to go there and you're going to get better, but you're going to have plateaus, you're going to have troughs where, like, and I think this is a part of just normal brain development, that when you're learning something and it starts to really, like, you know, connect those synapses in your brain kind of shuts down, you become retarded, and then, like, so for a period of time you're not doing anything well. And I've had that a bunch of times, like, where I'm just like, I can't put something together, the synapses kind of like connect, and then bang, I have another sort of, you know, a peak or an uplift in the skills. And that's what I enjoy about it. And I think that anyone who's going to be successful in jiu-jitsu has to enjoy the process of failure, because that's one of the only ways to get there. There will be successes, of course. Don't let me say it's all failure, but you have to enjoy the failure as much as the successes.
You have to find the good part of the failure. Like, all right,
correct.
I'm being presented an opportunity to evolve, learn, expand my mind, whatever. Whereas a lot of people approach it with that idea of like, oh, I keep losing, oh, it sucks, and wah.
Yeah.
And like they keep going on this like downward spiral rather than this like upward trajectory that you're talking about. Like, oh, I plateau and bang, I evolve. Oh, I plateau and bang, I evolve, and it just leads in the same direction.
Yeah, the amount of times like after training, especially when I used to train at nights, that I almost crashed my car, like thinking about going, oh, I could do, like, and then I'm like, okay, like let's just focus on it. We'll think about it when I get home, but that's what you've got to do. You got to have, and you got to look at the failures, how you can apply them to get better. And then when you have a win, like you finally submit with someone with something you've been working on, like enjoy it, but like that's just the start. You got to keep on working on.
Yeah,
on
I did it once. Now I need to do it in the next thing. Or the next time.
And I really like the transfer of that mentality from jiu-jitsu to real life as well.
Yeah,
whether it's in your job, relationships, whatever it might be, because you're going to be delivered, sadness and sorrow through different times in your life, and to have that, okay, I'll take the hit. What am I going to learn, and what's the direction or the actions I need to take to keep moving forward and hopefully avoid those things in the future.
That's also something that we've like had come up in conversation with, like, this is the 13th episode. Like, we always talk about like, what has jiu-jitsu taught you? Not only like, to give you confidence in the way that you can defend yourself physically and stuff like that, but like, man, this is a compacted version of life, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You're going to have setbacks, you're going to have to learn how to deal with them, you're going to have problems, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have catastrophic things that occur. Like, how do you deal with this stuff?
Yeah.
And I just think like a lot of people don't actually get to that point of recognizing, jiu-jitsu is a representation of life, or a lot of martial arts are a representation of life. Yeah. You're going to deal with all the ups and downs and all the...
And it was something that I learned as well. Like, when I started, I was like almost 30 years old. But I would say that like I still had like a quite an immaturity on failure. Yeah. And through jiu-jitsu, like I wasn't a person that gave up, but like how I dealt with it was not in a positive way. Like I'd kind of be like, kick the table kind of thing. This is shit.
And I think this is a constant work.
Yeah.
You're gonna open your mind more and more. Yeah. To isn't it? Like you're gonna have that failure. First you're gonna. Okay, you admit it, you try to be better, and then eventually you go like, what else I can take out? Or like, there's more other positions, like just carry on.
And exactly. And Eduardo, like, I've been with Eduardo now for like, 12 years as a coach and a mentor, and he would have seen me through different life stages, things. And like, I know that like where I was, and this is another thing of jiu-jitsu, because it's a long journey, you build up this relationship with the coaches and other practitioners that is very supportive, and you go through peaks and troughs, emotionally with training outside of that. And I think that's equally as important as like the art of training and doing jiu-jitsu as well. And like, I'm like an end product of that, in the sense that like where I am now, I'm better than where I was 12 years ago, way better. Yeah. And I've still got a lot of stuff that I can keep on improving and will continue to improve on. So like, it's a great addition to your life.
I think that's a really interesting like perspective on it, because we've never had anybody talk about like the way jiu-jitsu as a martial art or as an activity has helped like improve their relationship with failure. Like I just think that's a really interesting thing to note, because we've talked about people about accountability, and it's given them lots of confidence, and it improved in being sensitive to certain things, understanding this and that. But like I think that's like a really important perspective to look at. Like it really does teach you how to accept and deal with failure, which is something that's going to occur all the time in your life. Yeah. And it also kind of teaches you not only like the physical tools of how to deal with it in terms of like maneuvering past people and doing this, but it gives you some mental tools to kind of go like, all right, well, what can I do right now to failure or bad feelings or whatever are an indicator or a catalyst. All right, something's not working for me right now. What do I need to do differently? And I think that's a super interesting perspective. And
that's definitely a journey that I've been on the last 12 years. Yeah. Is that from being 30 and, you know, kind of thinking that I knew everything, being 30 to now going, wow, like I knew nothing. And like how far that's come. Fun, and I'm not even talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about life as a person. Like I am 100% a way better person. Not as a bad person, but like just matured and address things in such a better, positive and mature way to keep going forward. And like jiu-jitsu has definitely taught me that, like on the mat, but also the people that who are long-term in jiu-jitsu, like the lessons and information you can get. But it
starts with all those little behaviors, you know, there's little micro things that you're talking about, like, you know, not getting pissed off and punching the mat and saying fuck when someone did a submission or whatever. Like that goes to the bigger picture. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize necessarily, especially early on, because it's just uncomfortable. It sucks. It's horrible. You're getting submitted all the time. But all those little behaviors that you're changing, they lead to that 12-year bigger picture that improves the quality of your life. There
was a very famous jiu-jitsu guy, you know, world champion, Abu Dhabi champion. He said that he learned more from his coach before the fights and on hotels that they had trips, like conversations about life and etc. You know, then on the mat, you know what I mean? He was able to take that and put it back in his life and put it back in his jiu-jitsu, you know? I think that's very interesting as well. Sometimes a coach will come in a very nice way because you're not the best person to judge yourself. There's always, but if you have someone that, you know, likes you, that can give you insight as well, and you are sometimes able to take things from life and then put it back in jiu-jitsu as well. So it's the other way around, you know, which is super interesting.
And that's why, like for me, jiu-jitsu, I didn't know it at the time, but has been this amazing investment into my life. Like, yes, I have these skills, but within jiu-jitsu, but I have learned to use other skills in my life that have made it infinitely better than where it was going. And like I'd be eternally grateful, like that I walked through that door, that I met Eduardo, because I think a lot of that had to do with Eduardo, specifically coming back to reading his website and that code of conduct. In my head, I was like, if this guy's anything like this, he's going to be a good guy. And he was. And I feel very fortunate that I didn't have to go to this gym and that gym and deal with a bunch of people. Because in my traditional martial arts life, like in Kung Fu and whatever, I came across like mean, you know, senseis and whatever. And they just like to beat up on people. And like, you know, it was very autocratic in their approach to martial arts. Is that like, oh, this is secret and you can't know this, and I'll come over here, bang, fall on the ground, type of stuff. So I feel very fortunate that like this was like, you know, my first proper introduction to jiu-jitsu was with Eduardo.
For me, and I know it happened a lot in the past, and other martial arts have this culture, but for me, it's almost, I can't understand, like one of the coach goals is to give everything he can possibly have, like on the mat, outside the mat, to try and make you better version, you know what I mean, than you can possibly be. And if you're not doing that, he's not, for any reason, I mean, why is the point, you know what I mean? Like,
that's what they say, like a lot of the time the goal of coaching is to produce somebody that has a better understanding, better than you.
Version, you know?
Better version of you.
And make it everything right, even on the guy mindset, to try make it again and reproduce, you know?
And because of like how like that was for me, like as a coach now, like I will show everything to students, and like they'll do the things that I show them and they'll do them back to me, and I'll be like, God damn it, like, you know, because I'd be sweeping them with something or submitting with something, like any student that I train with regularly or teach, none of them give me their wrists now. Like wrist locks are like almost like a, you know, a hidden treasure like that I search for, because they all hide their wrists because they know I like them. But I'm trying to pass on to them as much as I can of what I know from jiu-jitsu, but also those life lessons as well.
To do with that thing, I think this is something that you were all kind of like hitting in an underlying level, but like this attitude of like this abundant mindset of where like, yeah, man, I'm going to share with you. I want to, you know, we're all sharing together. It's inclusive. We're like, this type of attitude only breeds more growth and more evolving and more everything.
Yeah.
whether it's technical stuff, whether it's the guys sharing in the hotel room about what to do about life and fighting, about relationship advice, all this stuff. You just continually feed each other, and it forces everybody to elevate and elevate and elevate.
And I think that only comes from the jiu-jitsu. Not people so have much bigger egos, right?
Yeah, but like I just think like it's just an interesting thing that like this attitude is beneficial for everybody. Like you're talking about, you're showing all your students and all this stuff, wrist locks and stuff, and then maybe they're getting you with wrist locks, and now you have to get better and do this better, and it's always about elevating it more.
Yeah.
And when you
one of them did give me with the wrist locks.
and when you have the other mindset where you're inclusive or hiding things, sorry, not inclusive, but you know, blocking, you can't have this, you're stopping, you're putting barriers in all the time around everything, and no, we can't do whatever you want, like, you're cutting everything off. You actually go the other way, it becomes more of a downward spiral where I'm not going to train with people above, like, we had Fernando in here last time talking about when he came from Brazil here, he went to a gym that's unnamed, there was 3 black belts on the mat. He came in, I want to do, you know, a casual class, 2 of the black belts left, because they're like, I don't want to train with the guy, I don't want to lose and stuff. And that attitude of this like scarcity mindset of like, there's not enough to go around, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, interest from people, whether it's, let people get upset, the jealousy of girl, man, there's another girl, go find somebody else, or whatever, there's more money, there's more people, go and open a gym somewhere else. Like this attitude of this like scarcity mindset, it's gonna cause major problems in your life. And the more you're open to just being abundant and understand that there's always more stuff around, there's always more stuff available.
100%. Abundance
in life is around, it's all around you all the time. What do you want to do? You want to share and create a beautiful like network of people and a family unit of like a gym and all this stuff and this community for people to get along and share and evolve and continue to get better? Or do you want to build an attitude of, like you said, with this a lot of old school thinking, stuff like that, where it's a dictatorship and what I say is the situation and that's it. We're not going to share and help. You follow my orders and that's it. And like, man, that's a hard way to deal with people if you're looking to improve and get better at things.
I saw a scene. I was on the mat when actually that happens. One of my coaches, Vinny, was teaching a class, and back on the day, this black belt was coming, visiting, etc. And he submitted a guy, and the guy came to him and said, probably purple belt, and the guy came to him and said, "Man, what have you done? Can you show me after training?" I said, "Oh, no way, this is a black belt secret." And like my coach listened to what the guy said, say, "Man, just come here, stand up, leave the gym, and just like you don't welcome here, man. Just for like, man, hiding stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't a joke. Was the guy wasn't gonna show, you know what I mean? So he like, you know, that was just.
But I think it's one of the reasons that like jiu-jitsu is, I think, a respected martial arts is that like, there's none of this like hiding stuff. Like, know everything and then go out and then, you know, do your best, and like, so someone's only going to be better or worse, and then if they're better, hey, what are you doing? And you see a lot of it. Like, you know, I've been in competition before and something's happened and I've talked to the guy afterwards. One of the first guys that I fought, I still chat to him like 12 years later. like on Instagram, like, you know, he's a black belt now, and whatever, like, and we have like a chuckle about like, you know, how crap we were. So
yeah, I think that's interesting, man. Like, I honestly believe a lot of that has to do with, like, sparring full clip. Like, you go 100%, so there's no confusion. There's no, like, oh, well, you know, if we went for real out in the street without the gloves on, I would get the guy. We were just sparring. Like, man, that attitude doesn't exist. You are going 100%.
Yeah.
I got you in a position of a choke, and you had to give up.
Yeah.
There's nothing clearer than that.
Yeah.
You were forced to go, I'm about to pass out. I need to do something. I can see. That's it.
Yeah,
there is, and I think that actually is very different to being knocked unconscious also, because you have to register in that moment and go, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What do I do? I have to give up.
Yeah.
I have to go. I have to make a conscious decision to say, no, I've had enough. I don't want to get damaged. I don't want to get choked unconscious. I give up. Let's go again.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that you have to make a conscious decision to say, I need to stop, is very different to also just being knocked unconscious.
I haven't thought about it like that, but it's very true. Like, you are making the choice whether to stop or not.
Yeah.
Where, it's getting punched, you generally don't see it coming. And
you don't see you get knocked out.
Later on you go, hey,
I didn't
what's
see it,
going on?
whatever.
Yeah.
And there's another thing too, like when you get submitted, you might get submitted, like when a guy's much better, you might get submitted like 7 times, right?
Yeah.
So the other one, you get knocked out once, you go, I it was lucky, man. Just got clipped here. It wasn't even, it got lucky.
Yeah, correct.
It wasn't skill.
Yeah.
And actually, the good thing about jiu-jitsu is you can get submitted 7 times, and then you can go again and get submitted for an 8th because you're not damaged. You haven't done anything really to your body if you're smart about it. And tap, when you should tap, and go, okay, let's go back. How did I get into that? What can I do next? And that's one of the things I like about jiu-jitsu is like going back and figuring out
that dynamic definitely leads to that less, because it's clear, man. There's no confusion. There's no unanswered questions.
Yeah,
I mean, it's in front of you. It's on the mat. It's written on the mat. This 100%. Is what happened. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Brandon, I just want to bring it up a subject. I know you travel, like
used to.
We used to travel a lot far away than now, but I know in your travels, like you've been to many different countries, and like a jiu-jitsu lifestyle, a lot of people actually, majority of people do jiu-jitsu for lifestyle, and benefits, health benefits, fitness, etc., and get really hooked on it. And we normally take the gi when we go to other countries. We put in our bags, and when we have the opportunity, it's part of the exploration of the place and get to know the culture. Is a great way to make friends, get to know restaurants that the locals go. I love that. People treat you really well. And you've been, I remember talking to you. You've been to Thailand. You've been in Europe. You trained in a couple of different gyms there. What were your, what are your findings like? Does it help you like to go and visit new countries? Do you have any funny story about that?
How
was it like in Thailand as well, which it wasn't many, the scene wasn't really big at the time. Did you train at Patong Beach, or it was actually a gym? Or?
I trained at Phuket Top Team.
I'm joking.
Oh, okay. But that was actually okay. So I'll start in Thailand. Like I went to Phuket Top Team and trained jiu-jitsu there. Professor Olavo Abru, I think his name is. And what was really good about that is that he was a really nice guy. Like when I came into the gym, he came up and introduced himself and said, hello, welcome, blah, 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 blah. And that was what was interesting about that gym is that like there was a lot of international people there of different cultures. So there was like a Brazilian guy, an American guy. I trained against a Russian guy, a guy from Sydney, a guy from Canada in this one session. But what I remember most about it, like, was generally his attitude, like, of the professor. Like, he was really open to like, new people coming in, and that's part of their business model. But he saw me do a choke, and you talked about this before. He came up to me, and at the time he was a 3rd degree black belt, and I was a purple belt. And he came up and goes to me, "What did you do there?" And it was just a variation on a baseball choke that I had basically started doing sort of a little bit by accident, because I could never. So when you get the gi and you wrap it over, and you're supposed to change the hand here and then choke like this, and I was just keeping it there and coming in here and then dropping off with my knee and there, essentially. But he'd never seen it before, so I showed it him, and he's like, "Oh," he goes, "That's good." And then went on his way. But I was quite chuffed about him asking me, and that was kind of like a really good indication, like, that he was a good coach, and that like, because he's asking a purple belt, he wasn't afraid at all. Didn't think about it. He goes, "Oh, can you show me that? I want to see what you're doing there." Because he had watched it, and I'd done it a couple of times because it had become like a technique that I like to do during that purple belt sort of stage. But the training there was really good. The Brazilian guy was really good, and because he was a purple belt as well, and the American was a brown belt. And I found out later he's actually a professional fighter, the brown belt.
Yeah, I think you'll find that with a lot of the guys that go to Thailand and stuff. Yeah. Like
he fights in one FC, because I saw him like maybe 2 or 3 years later, and I was with that guy. Yeah. The biggest thing though was that Gaha Jiu-Jitsu stood up. Because I wasn't sure about my own personal abilities, because this was the first time that I trained overseas in another gym outside of Gaha. And like a lot of it was about my abilities, like, what am I going to be like? And that was a really good test, because I went to this gym, I trained with people from all around the world, and like I fucking smashed a bunch of them. So like I was really happy, not about smashing people, but going, my jiu-jitsu, Gaha jiu-jitsu is legit, and my ability to do it is legit. And it also kind of proved that like, you know, Eduardo was known as like a tough grader, but it meant that the belt you're wearing, you've definitely earned that. Like it's not like a give me and go, oh, here's a belt and hopefully you get better. It's like that belt is because that's what you are. In that same trip, I was in Germany, and I trained in Germany as well. I've trained there like maybe 5 times now, like over the last sort of 10 years when I've gone to Germany. The first time was pretty funny because to find a jiu-jitsu gym over there in the area I was in was pretty hard. So there was one gym, and this is the gym that I ended up going to. They moved, and they used to be a Hodger Gracie affiliated, and then they became a Checkmat like we are now. But the first time in, the instructor was a blue belt and I was a purple belt. And he like, I can speak German reasonably well, not that great then, but he basically just went, you sit over there, and I was not allowed to be a part of the class, and he just sent people to me. So they're all white belts, and I'm like, but I would just want to be a part of your class. And he did like, so the whole time, an hour and a half of the class, I was just sat at the side, and random people would just come over to roll with me. And I'm like, okay. So I just sat there, I roll with people, would smith them a few times, and then they'd go off, and then someone else would come back, and then I'd submit them. It was really, really weird. Then the next time I went, which was several years later, I'd gone up to a brown belt, and he was now a purple belt. But I went up to him, and my German was much better. I said, I don't want to sit on the side. I said, I want to be a part of your class. You're the instructor, and I will sit here and be the student. I don't care that I'm higher ranked. I said, you teach, I listen, and I do. And it was much better. And it was really nice. And I started to, like the first time that I had trained there were still people training, and they'd gone from white belts to blue belts. And so they remembered me. And basically, it was nice because like then we were able to have a much more cohesive role. And then, like I said, like I've been there like maybe 2 more times after that. And the last time I rolled, I had gotten my black belt, and he was a brown belt. He's now since got his black belt. And you know, he knows who I am. He comes in, gives me a hug, and it took like over a decade to kind of build up like a bit of that relationship. We still follow each other on social media and like chat, and you know, they're in lockdown and we're in lockdown and these type of things. So it was really nice. But once again, it was really good to see that like how Gaha Jiu-Jitsu stood up against other jiu-jitsu schools. And like I've trained at other schools in Australia as well.
But Brendan, it's the aside from the jiu-jitsu, the technical part, like did you it's a super great lifestyle, like you on a holiday, right? Like you kind of like it's ice on the cake from the day, you know what I mean? Like you go and you train, and then you go for a restaurant you've never been before, you know what I mean? Like I found that's amazing, like in terms of when I enjoy, you know, the days when you're on a holiday like that.
When I would be planning a holiday, I'd be planning like where the hotel is based on where a jiu-jitsu gym was.
Location is,
like it didn't always pan out. Like sometimes they would be closed or they'd shut down or whatever it is. But yeah, like, and then like I would talk to them, and like depending on the language, like some people in Germany can't speak English at all, and I can speak German well enough to get by. But they'd go, hey, go there, go here, and like, you know, I've gone out with you know, and had drinks and stuff, and I think that's a nice part of it. That like, we share jiu-jitsu, and then we go, okay, cool, come in, and then it was that aspect of the nice atmosphere and a nice kind of community. Even though I'm Australian from the other side of the world, they're like, come on in, and
it does create a big bond, almost like automated.
The BJJ community is worldwide. It doesn't matter where you're from, you share the same experience. You're both choking and sweating on each other.
Yeah,
and then
correct. That was really nice. And so like, if I even now, like I'll generally drive around just with the jiu-jitsu gear, because like maybe someone will call me up and go, hey, what are you doing? Like, you want to train? I mean, yeah, I do. Like, I don't want to be not with the gear or like no gear or something, in case like there's an opportunity to come out. So yeah, and like traveling overseas has proven that like jiu-jitsu is like international. So even if you can't speak the language, you can still watch and participate and make friends and have a really good time. So I enjoy that aspect of it as well. And like one day when like borders are open again and we can fly, like I intend to keep traveling and you know, take my gi with me,
Training,
like for the rest of my life. Like wherever I go, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's always fun to go and experience new cultures and new people, new things, and learn like different aspects of jiu-jitsu through. Like, man, we've talked about this as well on all the different podcasts and stuff. But like, a lot of the time, the culture reflects how the jiu-jitsu is done, like the techniques they use and the way they do jiu-jitsu. So it's always interesting to learn. But I will like comment on the thing you're saying about how you recognize the effectiveness of or the level of the jiu-jitsu that you have around you, and I think that is actually important for people to go and do. And there's always a lot of discussion about people going and training in other gyms or cross training and stuff like that, and a lot of the time it's frowned upon and things like that, and like, oh, you shouldn't train at other gyms, particularly in their own geographical location. And like for me, that's up to people whether they want to, you know, jump around to gyms or stay at one gym themselves. But I think it is important to recognize the value of things and to go and experience other things and start to recognize like, oh, you know what, you know, this is good, or oh, like, man, I trained there's something wrong. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people don't know any different. They'll join a gym where the person's you know, not accredited as a black belt or whatever. They make it up, they put a belt on, they go there, they start teaching people, and they only train there for 10 years. They're still not going to learn anything realistic. So it is good to experience things and enter yourself into competitions and go and train at other gyms here and there if you're traveling, if that's the way you like to do it, or experience other stuff.
And like jiu-jitsu for me is definitely like a journey of knowledge. And I get a lot of knowledge from this gym, from you, from Eduardo, from like Fred, from other coaches, from students. Like students will be doing things. I'm like, oh, okay, what's that? Tell me. Like I do the same thing that I've seen coaches do to me. Like where they've asked me to show like them a technique and whatever, I do it as well. Like the leg lock game's a big thing these days, and like I understand some of it, but I know that some students are out there that are going after it. So like I'll sit there and go, well, you know, tell me what you know. Doesn't mean that they know everything, but I want to go, what's your perspective? Because I think that's an important thing too, is like getting a different person's perspective. So like when I go up to the Sunshine Coast, there is a couple of places that I like to train at, and then I learn different things, another perspective. I'll always be Gaha. I'm always going to come back here. But I'll train up the Gaha as there as well, because it's another perspective. And I'm gathering information. I'm gathering all these things that make me better at jiu-jitsu. And once again, it adds to me, I think, as a person. I can go to another gym and go, like, I'm not afraid to go to another gym and the black belt submits me, or one of their kick-ass purple belts or whatever. I go, oh, I don't care. Show me what you did. How did you do that? There might be, because like you end up training with the same people and you can get into a little bit of a rut. So like I teach morning classes, but I tell the students in the morning classes, hey, go to a night class, go to a midday class, because there's going to be different people and you're going to get different perspectives. Because we're teaching an arm bar, but you're like 20 to 30 kilos bigger than me. So my setup and my idea about like how I would and when I would do an arm bar may differ from you.
For sure.
And
to have that interjection from like other people, I think is important.
Right from the beginning, jiu-jitsu, like there was always like we would get like with friends, you know what I mean? Like especially, you know, your coach would take like 2 or 3 guys to another gym, or you organize with another mate and you would go in a car to train with other gyms or other branches from the same gym as well, you know, where the training was a little bit stronger or had a different time, because part of evolution is to train with different people, because you're not expecting what they're going to do. They don't know your game. They always get much in a comfort zone, you know, every single, like what the patterns that be very similar all the time. So this is a very important way to evolve as well, you know.
But I will be clear, and whether like people like this comment or not, like I think that you should have loyalty to a gym, if that gym is loyal to you. Like, but that's a symbiotic relationship of respect. And I think that that's important. Like, and I consider myself to be like a Gaha student, a Gaha coach, and I feel that that's where. But I will go to another gym, and train like if I'm away and stuff like that. But it's a way of just training, meeting some new people, and gathering knowledge and information. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that, and it's my opinion, that there's you have to have a certain level of loyalty to a gym. Unless you move and that gym is not available to you. I understand that you have to make adjustments. Don't quit jiu-jitsu. Like, join another gym. I would encourage that. But I do think that there should be some loyalty to the people who especially build you up.
I think like probably like a lot of the bad kind of stigma around that. Like, I think there's two ways to look at it. I think like particularly in like this modern climate, there are a lot of people that do jump around gyms, and a lot of the time the reason they do it is they're not happy with their progression here, so they go somewhere else because they think they're going to get the next belt or whatever. And I think that's the student's fault. I don't think like you should just leave a gym based on not getting the belt you want or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, fair enough if you recognize that there's an issue at the gym, the instructor is not, presenting the classes properly, or they don't have a level of which is, the same of things you've experienced or whatever. Like, if there's problems with the gym, I understand leaving, but leaving based on like a disappointment in your improvement, man, that's not, that's escaping. That's leaving the situation.
Excuse to not.
Now, also on top of that, like, man, you can't get upset with people that are going to leave. Like, a lot of people in the past that have been instructors, whether in Brazil or in, a Western country, man, they would get angry with the people for leaving. That it became this, like, gang type mentality. Like, if you leave, you betrayed me and you betrayed the gym. It's nothing personal, man. The guy wants to do something else, no problem. And a lot of the time you'll find people that do leave, especially if you are presenting a good thing, it's their issue. Why would you care?
And to that, like, I've got friends who used to train here, they're at other gyms, and there's not a gaha like that fits into their schedule, or is not close enough by, and they've gone to another gym. Still my friends, still see them regularly, have a chat to them, perfect. I'm just saying, like, if that's not your situation, I feel that you should show some loyalty to your gym. Notwithstanding that everything is fine, okay? So, like, there's respect, the training is good. And like, this whole thing about like blaming someone else for your progression, like, I think this is not someone's going to last in jiu-jitsu anyhow. So it doesn't matter where they go, they'll get filtered out.
They might find a place that gives them belts, and then they're like, man, people are crazy, man. People like they really
very true.
They focus more on like the appearance and taking the photo of a new belt and stuff than actually, like, man, what's the point of having a purple belt if you can't defend yourself?
Yeah, correct.
What's the point of going on this pursuit to improve yourself if you're not going to improve yourself?
Yeah.
Man, you can go to the shops and buy a coloured belt if you want. Just go and buy and put it on.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because they want like the they want the reward of being given
prestige.
this thing, the prestige of being rewarded this thing, but they don't want to do the work, and this is just something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Oh, not in this game.
Yeah.
No, not a chance.
Yeah.
Brandon, so do you prefer gi or no gi? Personally,
Gi. I prefer gi.
Do you prefer gi?
Yeah. So, like, when I first started, like, I trained in gi and no gi, and I made a decision, like, when I was I think after I got my blue belt, that I couldn't divide my time equally between them. Like, so, like, jiu-jitsu is like not my whole life. It's a part of my life, and so, like, I want to do other activities and I have other responsibilities. But I felt, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I felt that trying to split my time between them, if I could do two classes, one was this and one was that, I just prefer to just focus on one area. And subsequently, I'll tell people that that's not the right way to do it. You should do both. But what I ended up doing is that, like, I stopped doing no gi and I focused just on gi. And because of that, I'm much better in the gi, I feel, and I'm more comfortable in the gi. Although the last few competitions, like, I got knocked out first round in gi and I medaled in both no gi, so go figure. But I from I think it was like purple belt onwards, brown belt onwards, I focused a lot more on the gi. But I like the gi because I like to slow things down. I'm a small guy, and 90% of the people that I train with are at least 10 to 15 kilos bigger than me, especially in my morning class. Actually, the average is 20 kilos more than me. They're all around about 90 kilos and I'm 70. A gi allows me to slow them down a lot. And then I frustrate them, they burn out. And that's part of my game, is that like I like to play like a bottom open or a bottom half. And I like to use the gi to minimize their movement. And then they try to pull out, I pull them in, they try to come in, I push them out, and I slowly just burn them down. In no gi, I don't have that luxury because you can't grab on as much. Right. And so I do like, and
But then Brandon puts his fourth gear, and goes to the scramble.
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely my superpower. But I also, there's something about using my gi or using their gi to submit someone that I find like amusing, to be honest. Like I enjoy it, but like to use your gi and then I'm using it to choke you makes me laugh, to be honest. And so I like that. But like since brown belts, and when I got my brown belt, I went, I need to start like focusing more on no gi. So I've gone back into doing that. And I like both. To me, they're different. That there's similarities, and that they complement each other. And this is what I didn't understand at a blue belt level. I kind of thought this is different, and this doesn't help this at all. Wrong. The better you get at no gi, and then locking things down and controlling without these grips, the better you're going to be at using grips. Or if you can't use grips in gi, to shut things down. But it makes a much tighter game. Because then when I transitioned from going from just doing purely gi at the brown belt level to doing no gi, like everything was wide open. And like what I said, like in the scramble, I could get on top of people most of the time because I'm quick. But it wasn't clean. It wasn't crisp jiu-jitsu like technique. It was sloppy. So like over that, like the time through brown belt into black belt, I've worked on that a lot more. And I enjoy both. I like both. But if someone goes, you can only do one for the rest of your life, it'll be gi. For sure.
How about you, Antonio? A professional athlete, you have to get good at both because there are competitions on both. They have prizes on both, and it's a different. But there is always one that you like. Would you prefer one?
No, I don't really prefer one. Like I've talked about this a little before, but like I always look at things as like not one better than the other. It's always like there's good things about this and bad things about that. It's always like this middle ground kind of view. Like
definitely not
I really enjoy both.
Worse.
Yeah, correct. There's no.
I don't know
it's
one's better or worse.
Kind
I
of
just like.
When you feel more like it most of the time.
But that's what I mean. Like I enjoy these aspects of this, and I enjoy these aspects of this. It's hard for me to pick one.
It is a good point.
And like the thing that I would say, like in my opinion, the biggest difference between the two is just the amount of friction involved. Like you're saying, the gripping, the this and that. Yeah. So in the gi stuff, you have a more systematic approach to attacking from the guard stuff because you can grip the guy in a way that it's much harder for him to detach from you. Particularly also because of that friction, you get better at technically escaping things. Why? Because there's more friction. You can't just blow out of things and bust out of stuff as easy. You have to technically learn how to remove yourself from the control, detach and get out. So the friction creates all of these dilemmas in the gi stuff. On the bottom, it's actually a lot of the time it's easier for you to control, like you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. When you're doing guard and things like that. If you're stuck in bad positions though, it's way harder.
Yeah.
It's way harder to maneuver out. It's way harder. You got to be even more accurate with how you apply the techniques to remove yourself from whatever control the person has. In the no-gi, I think the thing that it becomes more difficult is actually controlling another human being because there's a loss of friction. So you have to be way more accurate with timing.
Yes.
You can't be so systematic. There's a small window, and if you miss it, you missed it. So you have to be way better at. I always use the analogy of you lined up the crosshairs of the sniper. And once it hits the target, you better pull the trigger because if you miss it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think you work on more in the no-gi stuff. It's way easier to just scramble out of stuff and do whatever. So controlling another human being is way more difficult. So you're going to learn how to control or reposition yourself and stay in good position more in the no-gi stuff. You're going to be way more reactive and capitalizing on stuff way quicker. Oh, there's an armbar, bang, got to the armbar and you found it. Because if you hesitate, you miss, whatever, the opportunity's gone. And in the gi, you can be so much more systematic with everything. You can learn how to control a human being and hold on to them and do this. But, like as a catch-22, like when you're trying to remove yourself from stuff, you have to be way more systematic with everything you apply.
And that's kind of what I learned. Like to abandon no gi at the blue belt level was a mistake. And like, if I can give anyone advice, like, you know, from day one, do both. Like you might do more gi classes, but do a no gi. Like if you're doing like 3 classes total, 2 gi and 1 no gi, but do that gi consistently, no gi rather, consistently through the whole time.
I really do think it's very, very complementary, and the skills you're going to learn from the gi stuff will help you in the no gi, and the skills you're going to help in the no gi are going to help you in the gi stuff. I think the reason now people gravitate towards no gi stuff is just more popular. And again, generally the reason it's more popular is because it's harder to control each other, so there's more movement.
But see, like my decision was not popular or anything like that. It was like a strategic move to focus on one area, which I thought, this is smart. Like, and a lot of the time, just focus on one area instead of spanning your attention across multiple things or multiple disciplines is smart. A smart idea. But it wasn't until I realized that how they complemented each other that I realized that, like, well, that's lost time. But like, lesson learned, I can at least use my experience to pass on to someone else. If someone ask me anytime, oh, what should I do? I'd go both, without a doubt. And whether I like one or more, I do like it. I like it. I find it fun.
I would just say, man, it's up to you. It depends what you want to do. Like most people that are looking at competing now and becoming like an athlete in jiu-jitsu, they all gravitate towards no-gi. Why? Because that's the stuff that's most popular. That's what people are watching. That's what people are promoting. That's where all the competition tournaments are based on. It's all in no-gi. Now, if you're thinking about being an athlete or a competitor, focusing on no-gi is not a bad choice, because that's what the popularity is moving towards. It depends your goal. If you just want to become a better practitioner of martial arts, man, you should always do both. In my opinion, again, it's complementary. The stuff you learn in the gi is going to help you with no-gi, and it's going to make you better overall. But you have a small window of time to be an athlete and all this stuff. You want to focus on being an ADCC world champion. All you're going to do is no-gi stuff. That's up to you, man. In my opinion, I would still always focus on both. Same thing you're saying, whether it's a strategic choice or whether it's this. In my opinion, in terms of improvement or being a better individual, whether it's martial arts, whatever, if you do both, you're going to be better.
And let me recap. My strategy was wrong. Don't do that. Do both.
I like both. Obviously, brought up in Brazil, you've done a lot of gi most of the time. The no gi at the time was made with gi pants and no shirt, and and that's how we went. But I started to like a lot more. But there's one thing that I always say is that I like both, but if to train with a rough and without, I like no gi a lot as well, but to train with someone that is technical, to do like someone that's just gonna go and like have super leaving elbows and going mental, then I prefer to train with that person in gi. Or not at all, to be honest.
Because you can control.
But probably never.
I'll go with not at all.
Probably never, ever. You know what I mean? Because I'm getting too old for that. But if you get a guy like that's like that, like train no gi, I'll feel shit. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the same point. It's because you can avoid all that collision and all this stuff, because you can control the guy more. So you just have to understand, like, regardless of whether it's gi, no gi, man, you want to be a pilot or a truck driver, you need to understand, all right, what are the benefits and things out of this thing? What are the negatives? What are the positives and benefits out of this thing and the negatives? Everything's cost benefit analysis. What's the great things? What's the bad thing? Everything costs something. All right, in the gi it costs this, in the no gi it costs that. What do you want to do? Or do both. Then you got the negatives from both sides and the positives from both sides. Cover everything. It doesn't really matter, man.
But people that do follow, no, it doesn't matter at all. But sometimes it's just a lifestyle thing in a way where, like, you have people that love play soccer at the beach. You have people that like on the grass, like people that like on cement. It's just very similar.
Man, but if you're doing for lifestyle, man, do everything. Sure. Do that. Do kickboxing,
and you get fun out of all of them. I agree.
100%. Like, if
there's no downside to either of them, really.
No.
Especially because, like, oh, this is what we got today. All right, man. Okay, you know what I mean? Like,
that's what I said. Like in my car, like I'll have, and like the bag that I bring to jiu-jitsu, I always have like a no-gi in there, just in case someone goes, like Andrew goes, hey, can you want to jump on and do this for a second? Okay, ready to go. And I think,
I think that's something that people should kind of prescribe to a little more. Like, if you're not doing something seriously, like if you're not being an athlete, if you're not being like a, this is your thing that you do for work or an income or whatever, man, do everything, try everything. You should be going and, doing kickboxing, boxing, some kung fu, this and that. To find the thing. No, but man, find the things that you like and enjoy and then do that. Like, I think a lot of people kind of get into an attitude like, no, I only do jiu-jitsu, I only do this, and man, try the stuff. Go do some wrestling, go do some judo, go do some, man, try and learn, explore, whatever. Man, I think the idea of only staying committed to one thing, man, it's silly if you're not going to be like an athlete in that thing. Unless you're going to go to the go to the Olympics for judo or whatever. Man, it's silly to like, man, judo and judo.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I actually even think like advice for like students, and especially people new to jiu-jitsu, people get like addicted and they go like 6 days a week. Nothing wrong with it.
For how long though?
For how long?
Yeah.
Like,
so that would be my next question, Brandon. Like, being over 40, and you have 3 kids as well, which a lot of people would be the showcase excuse to not train. Like, like there's a lot of people, I'm already 30. I was like, I have a kid, it's really hard, or it's raining, or like people have excuses like there you go, I'm working hard, or like no one works, so you know what I mean? Like, I mean, and I know you always train regularly, you have a schedule. I think when you like something, and something more important, even when something makes you feel better, makes you feel optimal level, you make a time, and you've been doing that for a long time, and now also over 40. What are the changes that you have to make to have the jiu-jitsu being part of your lifestyle for all these times, like having 3 kids, being over 40? There's a few adaptations, like we can't train every day. You have to have like you always on yoga here, you have to have a yoga like a stretching routine. You know what I mean? What are the advices you can give to people that have like all these commitments?
Okay, so like two questions in there. Like the first one about like managing the time to train. Like I work full time. Like I have a side business, and I teach, and I have 3 kids. So basically, it is 100% focused on what you want. So if you want something, you will make the time. And you look at your schedule, and then like how much time are you sitting down? How much time are you watching TV? How much are you flicking through your screen? How much time are you like wasting, or you're being busy, but not productive? And for me, when I started jiu-jitsu, I fell in love with the puzzle of trying to figure it out. And the more that I solved the puzzle, the more I realized I didn't know, and the more I wanted to learn. So I just made the time, I would negotiate time like with work or whoever so I could come. And then like I always had a commitment of like going a minimum of 2 times a week to 3 times if maximum. And if it came, like I would go like, sometimes would come up like where I'd be on holidays, and I would go like 5 days a week. But what I like, and it worked well with the evolution of the gym, more people coming, more classes becoming available. I originally, when I first started, I trained at night. So like I work in the city, I would come here, I'd train, then I'd go home, and I'd do it like 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week. And at times, like, and back in the old gym, there used to be I think it was like a gi class and a no gi class, or other way around, like one after the other. And I used to go bang, I'd do 2 of them. So that's 2 classes, then I'd get 2 other ones in there. And my body would hate me. Like even back then when I was 30, it still hated me. Then, when the kids came along, like, I had 1 kid and I had 2 kids and then 3 kids, the night times weren't working, like, because you're trying to put kids to bed and shit like that. Okay, cool. I'm going to go midday. So I negotiated with my work. I said, hey, I want to be able to, and I worked in the Valley at this stage. I want to be able to go and train. So they go, okay, cool. So like I would start work earlier, and then I'd get off at like, I think it was 11:30 class. So I'd stop at 11, go back at 2. I'd get on a bike, like it would go 11 o'clock. I'd run down, get my bike, pedal here from the Valley, train, then ride back. One time I was like so buggered, like I clipped a bin and like it went arse over tit. And so I almost crashed a few times, but it's because it's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'd get back to work, I'd finish out my work, then I'd go home and take care of all my other duties. Then I moved offices again, and then and then I had to, like, it was out in like on the north side of Brisbane, kind of close to Launton. Then I drove. Like, so I'm still coming to daytimes, and then that became much harder. I moved into back into the city, and to try and get out of the city here, even though it's the same distance from the valley, logistically it's way more difficult. You have to cross different paths and roads and stuff. And the daytime wasn't going to work for me. I couldn't go to night, and luckily at that stage, morning classes started to come. So I came to morning classes. So I'm getting up, like at that time I lived in the north side, getting up at 5 o'clock, having all my stuff, driving here, training, then going to work.
Which is a brilliant lifestyle, by the way. You know.
Yeah, like I love the morning classes. Like if no one's doing,
work.
if people worried about getting up and early, the rest of your day you've owned it already. Like you go and do like a jiu-jitsu training session, and then go to the rest of the day. Like you're not bothered with stuff. Like
can be back at
your
home,
boss is
look
like
after the
this, you
kids.
go, whatever, and you move on. But I wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Like that's the main thing I wanted to do. I had other things in my life like music and this and but jiu-jitsu was a goal that I wanted to achieve. So it didn't matter what impediment was put up. I didn't focus on the impediment. It was like, how am I going to
get around this? Yeah.
Like I had big arguments with people at work and stuff. Like, major things like where like, I had to go to HR and all sorts of things about jiu-jitsu because like I'm going like, well, fuck this guy. He's saying I can't go. I'm going to go, and I'll show you that I'm going to go. And I made it happen. So I got like a lot of impediments thrown up at me, but I overcame them because that's what I wanted to achieve.
But you don't have 10 cigarettes breaks during the day, do you?
No,
when you work,
correct. And like, I wouldn't eat lunch. Like I'd be like spitting lunch on myself as I'm driving back type of thing. But I'd go to work early, I'd come late, and like I wouldn't have morning teas, and like I would just make it work. My work was always done. It's just for like a period of driving and training, I was not there. And yeah, but it came down to it's what I wanted to do. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I made it happen. So the second part is being 40. A lot of it is really kind of putting your ego in a vault. Because you can't compete as much all the time with some younger people. But I slow my game down a lot, and like I'll let people get things and get to spaces because I know that like even if someone gets my back, like if I just relax and calm, let them burn themselves out if they're bigger, not all the time, but like I just kind of I'm not so worried about winning a role because like I don't think that you win a role anyhow. Like you get submitted, and then you've submitted someone, you've learned something as the person who did the submission on someone, going, okay, that worked. Oh, when I did this was great. If you get submitted, oh, where did I go wrong? Oh, they did this. Next time I need to go back. So it's a win-win every time. And I know that's common in jiu-jitsu, but it's true from both angles.
Would you say that like as you've gotten older, you're more composed in like worse scenarios and stuff like that? Because
yes.
You've just got more
100%, yeah.
You get better escaping too because you're so much more like slower, eh? Like when the
and so interestingly, like I have claustrophobia. And so when I first started jiu-jitsu, it was pretty
difficult.
It was pretty difficult. And like, cause like I'd get like someone who's really big on top of me, and then like I would panic, and like I've had to stop rolls numerous occasions because like I started having a panic attack because of claustrophobia. Like I'm getting squashed and I can't move. I'm like, get off me. And then I would explain to the person, like, I'm sorry, like, but blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, okay. And like, interesting, I've had a student run out before of the class because they were claustrophobic, but I didn't know. They never came back. And I said, and text Eduardo, I said, oh, some guy ran out. I don't know what happened, but we pieced it all together. But really, it's just about going and having fun. So I'm not out to prove anything. I like to roll hard, and like if there's competitions, I've decided to go to a competition, I'll beef it up a little bit. But I'm out there as an instructor try and make people better, not to win or anything. So it's more that like my game is just much more relaxed. If you pass my guard, okay, cool. I'm not going to let you pass my guard, but if it gets past,
What happens?
okay.
You're not going to panic anymore. You're more
Exactly.
composed, yeah.
And even with like because it's been so long now, the claustrophobic thing doesn't come around as much because I'm composed. Claustrophobia is just a fight or flight response. And it used to be a flight where you have to get out, and it's not even a fight now. It's just
Mm.
there, breathe, bang, bang, and I also don't let myself get into positions that I know that trigger it, like really quickly.
Yeah.
And when I'm against big guys, like I just play that game, and I don't let anything just get set up. So yeah, it's really about just slowing things down and being calm and not worrying about the end result. I like to get a submission these days through as little effort as possible.
That's the goal, though, isn't it? That's the goal of jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To achieve your goal with as much efficiency as possible, yeah.
Exactly. Like if I can get that submission where I haven't had to really work for it, I love it. That's why I like wrist locks, and I don't get them as much now, but like a lot of the students in the morning class, they'd be doing something and they'd be like here, and they're just sitting there like that. And if they're a blue belt, you're gone. And I would get it, but they've now all learned to keep things close and not to do this like the old gooseneck. But like I like that submission because it was so simple. I had to do nothing for it. They just had their arm there.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, man. Like, as you get older, you're kind of forced into doing jiu-jitsu properly. You know what I mean? Because you just don't have the same energy output. And that's from anyone. Like, man, like, even the way I'm still strong and athletic and stuff like that, but, like, the amount of output... yeah, man, but, like...
a little bit.
But no, but, like, but the output of energy that I had when I was 20 versus now, 26, 27, is massively different. Like, man, I could just do whatever I wanted when I was 20. And you talk about... any athlete, like I'm still strong. I'm in the prime of.
But you're using a better service.
Yeah, I'm efficient with what I'm doing. I don't just go. I don't care. I can get through anything. Just pure biology. Biology is not supposed to be something you rely on. You're supposed to rely on.
And it'll give you longevity
techniques
if you start doing it now. Even more longevity.
The earlier you can learn that, the better. And the thing is I just think it's funny that people try to resist that for as long as possible, but like it's inevitable. Like time will.
And they break themselves most.
Yeah.
And being small, like I like for a long time, I've had to resort to being, you know,
faster or whatever.
Well, faster, but just smarter about what I'm doing.
For sure.
And so Eduardo touched on it. Like, one, from a game perspective, it's to slow it down and just be smarter and calmer. But from a complementary thing, like yoga. So I've been doing yoga for like a year and a half now, and that has been amazing. So I would recommend to anyone to do like yoga classes.
I think we are the most regulars, eh?
I barely miss a class.
Yeah.
But it's been a real benefit of just like core strength. I do some weights like some kettlebell stuff and push-ups and chin-ups and things like that, but I don't do a lot of weights. I don't think that's very...
Have you added all of this stuff like as you've gotten older, or...?
Yeah. So when I was younger, like I wouldn't
care about
warm up.
Much,
I'd just go in, like go hell for leather and then go home. Wouldn't stretch down, wouldn't do anything. Never did anything else. But now, like I'd like to do more complementary sort of things, like a whole body, body weight exercise, like where I just do squats and lunges, and push-ups and dips and chin-ups and things, so that my whole body is not big, but like I'm maintaining core strength and flexibility. Like flexibility and movement and mobility, I think, is really important. Like I don't want to get to a point of work where I can't move, I can't walk, I can't bend over.
So would you say it's as you've gotten older, it's more important to have like a physical maintenance regime?
Yeah, but you should start it as soon as
of course,
possible.
you should have it forever. But I think like it's even more important the older you get.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Sure.
And like, don't get drawn into this like deadlifting stuff.
Yeah, it's not about power. It's just maintaining some level of
movement,
strength and conditioning and mobility and flexibility.
I recently just tried Pilates, which was actually really good.
Yeah.
And like I like to do lots of things. Like in some exercise, we'll be just going for a hike. Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be like this gym orientated
lifting
activity.
heavy, smashing your body, whatever. Yeah.
Like I'll go for a hike or, even just a walk, but it's that movement and that complementary lifestyle to doing jiu-jitsu. Also, knowing when to not train as well, I think has been very important.
Resting,
like I still have the same mentality, like I want to train, but I need to listen. I listen to my body a lot more. I've even done it before, like where I've gone for it to start to do exercise, and I'll do like a bicep curl or something. I go, oh, there's a bit of a tweak there, and I go, normally I go, don't be a pussy, like let's get through it. Yeah. Now I'm like, let's just put that down, because like I don't want to risk something for what, like some type of like male ego nonsense. I want to be able to train jiu-jitsu. I want to have a good life. I want to be able to play with my kids, go out and do things, and whatever it might be. And so you have to approach what you're doing differently.
I think like probably the biggest thing you're mentioning, like underlying and everything, is like you need to find a deep level of discipline to have the outcome in the life you want. And it started with like, I'm going to be so disciplined with how well I do my work and eating lunch and doing all this stuff so I can go and train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I'm going to structure a life through my own discipline where I can actually do the things that I want.
Yeah.
And now that I'm getting older and, it's harder on my body, and I'm going to be more disciplined with who I train with, how I train with them, what I do to maintain myself, and all this stuff. And the thing is all it is at the end of it is how disciplined you are being with your own regime or your own schedule. And the more disciplined you are with anything, the better outcome you have.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that particularly younger dudes or younger people in general never even consider.
Yeah, it's that balance.
Yeah.
Like for me, like a lot of that is about balance. Like
self-discipline, though, I think.
The more you do these movements, the more you expose yourself to stretching, the more the more time you do, the more you got to understand yourself. So you ask, like, you can understand when it's time for you to not train.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have this understanding of inner self that's very important, I think, to be able to be the judge of these calls,
Yeah, exactly. And like as an instructor as well, like, so I'm a black belt, like, I don't care if I tap to someone like this, not a black belt. Like if I get one of my students and they catch me, I'm going to tap. Don't care. I think that's a really important thing. Like as the level you go up, whether you're a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, if someone is getting you, like, you need to let go of your ego and tap, because I've seen a bunch of people get injured as well because they don't want to tap to a lower belt. Just take it on the chin and go, okay, they caught you, because that's going to happen. And I think that's one of the things like that, like being older is like my recovery is going to be a lot longer than like, someone in their 20s. And so like I will avoid things where I don't get injured as well. If someone gets my arm extended, tap, done. Don't care who you are, I'm going to tap. And I think that's actually a very important sort of part of training when you're older as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the same thing as saying you're understanding more, but at the end of it, it's just being disciplined with everything you're doing. Like, I'm going to be disciplined with tapping. I want to be disciplined with my schedule. I'm going to be disciplined with my stretching. Like, the importance of discipline is so like obvious in life in general, but as you get older with anything physical, because your body, like, man, whether it's a professional NBA player or whatever, a guy at 20's eating cheeseburgers and doing whatever he wants, and he can still perform the same way. A guy at 40 cannot.
Yeah.
Your diet better be right. You better be stretching. You better be working out. Yeah. You better be tapping when you need to. You better be doing it. Like, man, you have to be so much more disciplined because the repercussions are bigger.
Correct.
And I just think it's interesting that as you get older, you if you are aware of this stuff, if you're open to, understanding this stuff, you're going to develop a deeper level of discipline, and you're going to be way stricter with things, and you're going to structure and organize things properly. Because if you don't, you're going to have bad outcomes.
Yeah.
And here in Australia, sorry.
Yeah, I just think as a younger dude, you don't have to do that. And that's why that is a trap of jiu-jitsu. That trap itself of not being disciplined and not knowing where things stand and not being disciplined and strict with things. Whether it's stretching, whether it's everything. I'm the same. I have never, ever had a disciplined, structured routine for stretching. And I've been injured countless times because of that. Because I never focused on that. The only thing I focused on was getting stronger and more powerful, and this and more strength and more power and more strength and more power, and never focused on being flexible. And I've had multiple knee injuries, and I've had this, and I've had ankle injuries, and I've broken this, and I've broken that, and I've had knee reconstructions and blah, blah, blah. And the reason for that is because of not being disciplined. And the reason you're not disciplined is like, it'll be right, whatever. This this poor attitude of ill discipline because I'll just get through it with my biology. I'll just get through it because of this or because of this. And people do that in every aspect. We talked about right at the start of this kind of podcast where the guys that were professional fighters running a gym that didn't give a shit about the general population of the gym, which brings the majority of the income.
Yeah.
They're the majority of the gym, but they don't care about that, and they're not disciplined with promoting or giving a good product because all they cared about was their own training. Yeah. And this is just extra garbage to fund our own training.
Yeah.
But man, if you're disciplined with that, now you create a great scenario for everything, and everything improves.
Yeah.
And I just think it's an important point to note that
and bringing it full circle to that question, I moved my life around and situated it so I could train jiu-jitsu. Yeah. That goal hasn't changed. Doesn't matter what belt you've got. My goal is still to train jiu-jitsu. And so it might not be about time now, but it's about my ability to train jiu-jitsu. So I'm not going to do something where I'm going to get injured or cause myself some type of impediment to train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's right.
And your circumstances are always going to change, but your goal is always the same, you know what I mean? So
Correct.
You're going to have to adjust and change and be disciplined in different areas and in different things, but you're still always focusing on how can I work on my own self-discipline to create the life that I want. I want to do this is the goal. So what do I have to cut back on and be disciplined around so that I can achieve this?
100%. Yeah. And like since I started jiu-jitsu, that has been one of my core focuses. I want it to always be like a prominent positive thing, which it is in my life. And I will make the rest of my life fit around that.
Yeah.
And when you look at if you have more like in Brazil, for example, you're exposed to training for a lot of older people, right? So you can train with a black belt that's 60, one that's 70, I train with one that is 80, which you have to cater for them, right? Not putting any physicality in it and become a completely puzzle game. And sometimes you blow your mind how much tools they have. People that actually gave themselves all these years for jiu-jitsu, as a lifestyle and professional, etc.
They might not be able to submit you 20 times, but they can definitely
show you things, man. And it's beautiful. And I found this super, I want that. And I respect that. And that's how people mentality has to change to be able to get the most out of these trainings as well,
Correct. And the only way you can do that is by doing it smart. To have that longevity and to be able to move around and train, you might not have the whole physicality or the strength or whatever, but if you've got movement and you're healthy, you can go onto the mat with someone who knows how to control themselves, and you can have fun still in jiu-jitsu, and you can teach people. That's what my hope is, but that's my goal, and that's what I work towards.
Beautiful.
And I do it every day, of eating well, trying to get enough sleep. I don't drink a lot. All of those type of things is about, having this in my life until one day I tip out, and then I don't need to worry about it.
At
that point, I don't have to worry about nothing.
Yeah.
Brandon, look, I think it was a great pleasure to have with us today. It's good that we have a lot of the very similar mindset towards things, you know what I mean? That means that we've definitely been sharing the mats and having a great time all these years.
Definitely.
It's awesome to have you as part of Garra, and you always being right-handed, helping a lot as well, which is something that I always say, and Anton and team as well. Everyone that's been a long time, this is impossible to get where we're getting if it was just one person.
100%. You got to rely on other people.
It's a team, man. And this is the biggest proof that the team can go much further. I have no doubt about it. But it's always good to show my appreciation, you know what I mean? And you guys being awesome. There was every single time we learn lessons, just like in jiu-jitsu, we put it back in practice, we go back, one correct one say, well, I'm going to go back next time and do it better, and so on. We're always moving forward, which is the beauty about it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate the time. And just to add on to a little bit what you said there, and we've talked about it during the podcast, but jiu-jitsu is much more than just that rolling around on the ground.
Bashing somebody else,
There's that friendship, that building of your personal character, the support, and all of that mixed in, and let's just call it life, but a good positive life that is going in a great direction,
Yeah.
and we're all trying to do it
At the same-
together.
together,
And I'm really humbled to be a part of it, and to be able to call you guys my friends, like, you know, my, you know, mentors, even though they're like, he's like 15 years younger than me, like, you know, like there's still that, like, you know, I learn things from Anton, and I learn things from Eduardo.
Definitely.
And like, I think this is what's really great about jiu-jitsu. You kind of put away age, ranks and stuff, and everyone brings a different perspective for life, for jiu-jitsu, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
I think it's like, it's like a pretty strong journey of like self-maturity and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't matter your age, man. You're gonna find like a lot of guys that have been doing jiu-jitsu since they were, you know, 8 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. They have a different level of maturity to a lot of people that do other things. It's you experience life to a deeper extent, you know what I mean? But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and really appreciate you know, your perspective, particularly on that like idea of like it changes your relationship with failure, and that's something that I've never really kind of thought about, but talking about it and stuff's really highlights
that was a big lesson for me.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks very much.
Thanks so much,
the
man.
rest of the day.
Yeah, man. Thank you.